Testing. All right, there we go. Hello, and welcome to the Afrocentric Woman. Today was one of those days I was about to fall asleep, but I was like, let me pop on and check out the channel and share a little bit. Because I figured, this is a longer topic that I want to talk about, but I feel like we can just talk about it in little spurts. And hopefully this weekend, I'm thinking maybe Sunday. Maybe what's going on this Saturday? All right, today's the 10th. Let's see. Saturday. It's gonna be the 15th. I don't know if I feel like there's I feel like there's I feel like there's an not an opera. I feel like there's a symphony event this Saturday. But so I'm thinking Saturday or Sunday we can do a call-in show and we can talk about um, red flags, but I feel that the conversation about women and girls protecting themselves is important enough to just talk about over and over and over again. Discuss deeply, share ideas, and keep the conversation going. Because the way I see it as a mother of a daughter, um, it's so important that we instill these uh, protection principles in them, not just protecting themselves physically, but I'm specifically going to be talking about financially because it's probably one of the more blind spots in the level up community. Um, marry a rich man, your problems are solved kind of lifestyle or content and philosophies is really advanced strategies to protect yourself financially. Um, so there was a comment on the channel about, what if a guy, develops an addiction like gambling or making risky investments. I'd even throw in drug addiction too, because I could tell you, or you could learn um, in a variety of places. You can try your best and do all the right things to find the right person, and that won't necessarily shield you from that person going down a path that you had never imagined them going down, or maybe they were omitting information from you that you didn't know. So there's there's not one way that you can prevent that. I mean, you can do everything to try to mitigate your risk, but there's no way to eliminate all risk in marrying someone or linking your life up to them. When it comes to men and red flags or how much you want to integrate your life with them, that's what it they're categories. Not all men are in the same categories depending on what your plan is with him and how much you want to integrate your life. And I would say having children with him being the most integrated you could possibly be, going on a simple date being like the least integrated you can be. And there's a spectrum all in between. So yeah, so when it comes to like even cohabitation, that's leaning towards like if having children with him was all the way like a number 10 and like going on a date was number 1, cohabitation is maybe like somewhere between 5 and 7, somewhere in that range. Versus like marrying him but just never having children with him, or maybe you already have had your children and he has his children and you're not going to have any more children together, but you marry him. So that's probably like an 8 9. So there's this large spectrum of how much you're going to integrate your life with him, and then that would determine what measures you take to protect yourself. But I like to kind of think of it on an asset by asset basis. Um, that's one way to approach it, a part of a comprehensive plan. But that's one way to approach it, is how will you protect each asset. So if you look at, let's say, the asset of a home, a primary residence, how would you protect yourself if he somehow becomes insolvent, develops an addiction, becomes abusive, etc.? How are you going to protect yourself in it? And some initial thoughts that I have are, make sure that you're on the deed of the primary residence. Um, I've talked with a lot of women who have hesitated to advocate for themselves to be on the deed, especially if it's a home that they're not quote unquote buying. Like maybe it was his family home, maybe he already had the home, maybe he's the one buying the home, or there's a variety of reasons why women feel like, oh, I they don't want to advocate for themselves to be on the deed. But the truth is, it's just plaster and sticks and bricks. It's really not a home until you get there. So you're the one who's making it a home, and you're going to put your blood, sweat, and tears into that house, maintaining that home, um, making the home have a life. Your energy is worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, whether you put one red cent into that house or not. So before you move one stick of furniture into that house, pull one weed out of that yard, repair anything, paint anything, sleep in the house, make sure your name is on the deed. Now, when it comes to, and then run your own title, I would say run your own independent title on the house too. Don't trust his people. Like his people are his people, and they are beholden to him. He's the one that pay them. They'll say whatever they need to say or produce whatever reports they need to produce. So hire your own independent title search so that you can be well aware of the property and have your own independent research. You could have the house appraised on your own, and you could have the house inspected on your own as well, and have all that information so that you can decide what you want to do or how much insurance you want to buy. And just the more information you have independent, the more better off you'll be with making a decision about what you want to do with it. Now, when it comes to the mortgage, that can go different ways. I mean, there's one strategy where you can be on the deed but not on the mortgage, and then he's responsible to pay the mortgage. Um, the thing with that is it would be harder to get duplicate statements for the mortgage to make sure that it's being paid, because when it comes to that question that popped up on the channel, like what if something happens where, like, let's say maybe he develops a drinking problem or a drug problem or a gambling problem, or makes a bad investment, and somehow like the mortgage is not getting paid. You don't want to be in the dark about anything that's going on with your primary residence, because your primary residence is going to be one of your biggest assets. It's going to make up a big part of your net worth. So you definitely don't want that asset to be in jeopardy or to have something going on with it that you don't know. So I'm on the fence about the mortgage situation or somehow being on the account. Perhaps you can add yourself to the account as an interested party, um, or somehow set it up to where you can get duplicate statements on the house, on the mortgage, so that you know that it's being paid. Don't get with a man and put your head in the sand and like, oh, he's perfect. He's taking care of everything, and assume all is well. I would say always be on the guard. Always be on the trust but verify, or verify and then you can trust. Maybe that's a better way. Yeah, verify and then you can trust. You want to make sure that he's paying those payments on time. Um, you also want to make sure that he's not taking out additional loans on the equity of the home, because then that starts to eat into your net worth. That starts to eat into um your value, your investment in that home. Um I don't I don't have the specific way about how you can monitor if there's like a HELOC or any liens put on the house, or loans taken out on the home. But what I would say is get a financial advisor or a wealth manager or an attorney that specializes in real estate, and let them know periodically, like maybe you do it once a year, or maybe you do it every other year, or every 3 years, or at some interval. You just do a wellness check on your primary residence to make sure that there's no additional loans or liens or anything like that on the home. Of course, you're going to be getting property tax statements to make sure the property taxes are being paid. Um, so find a professional that specializes in it, and I bet a divorce attorney would be really good. Like a forensic investigator, or like like those. There are people who know how to do all that stuff. So get that professional to run a periodic check to make sure that all is well with your primary residence. So that's going to be some ways and mindsets that you can think about protecting your your primary residence, which is an asset, part of your, if you think of it as part of your portfolio, part of your net worth, and you have to take an active role in protecting it. And then you can apply those same tactics to your secondary homes, vacation homes, um, other land that you may have, um, to just do wellness checks to make sure that they're okay. So if you notice he starts to slack on the mortgage or takes out a loan on the house that you don't know about, it's better that you find out about it right away, and then you can act, rather than putting your head in the sand, and before you know it you're getting foreclosed on, and it's worthless. You put all this energy, you've remodeled this home, you've brought up the property value, you've raised your children in this home, you've made it your home, and then before you know it, oh my God, he's squandered the house away some type of way. So, those are my initial thoughts about protecting your home and making sure that you're in the know. And then while we're on that one, I would say also make sure that you have enough insurance on the home, and make sure that you're getting duplicate statements on the insurance policy to make sure that it is up to date and that you have enough coverage on the home. And then at least in my state, if you have two homes, or if you have like a primary residence and you have secondary residences and you have the same homeowners insurance, if something happens to your primary residence, let's say you have a house, a condo that you're renting to someone, and let's say you have a fire in your primary residence, and the house is totally being like gutted and remodeled, and you need either a rental or a long-term, like bed and breakfast, not a bed and breakfast, but what are those, like, executive hotels, the executive hotels that have the kitchenette and like a living space, like a extended hotel situation. Well, some insurance companies don't pay for that extended stay if you have a secondary home on the same policy. And you're like, well, hey, insurance company, I can't live in that house. I'm renting that house to another family. Like, I can't live there. And sometimes the insurance company will tell you, too bad. read the fine print. So I've learned from observing others that sometimes it's better to have a different policy for your secondary home versus your primary home. But moral of the story is make sure you have enough insurance. Okay. Um, let's talk about bank accounts. So bank accounts are and brokerage accounts, any type of financial accounts. We could just talk about that. We'll just group them all together. So when it comes to your bank accounts, you want to keep your money separate, of course. Keep your money separate. Keep your money separate. Keep your money separate. If you have a joint account for like household payments, like utilities, children's activities, paying the gardener, paying car repairs, whatever, etc. That's fine. So what you want to do instead of getting a joint account, like a joint with rights of survivorship, a joint with rights of survivorship means that if he dies, the money goes to you. If you die, the money goes to him. But if you get an account called tenants in common, that means that it's by percentage. So you can decide what that percentage is. I want to say the default is 50-50, but you could have a tenants in common with 40% to one party, 60% to another. You can have more than two parties on a tenants in common account with, allocate the percentage. So, um, so with the tenants in common, it goes to the person's estate. So if he dies, it goes to his estate. If you die, it goes to your estate. So it won't just automatically go to him. So in some cases, it would make sense to have that type of account instead of a joint account or a community property account or a husband and wife community property account. Um, check your local laws, check, your local situation, talk to a CPA, talk to a financial advisor and see what will be best. But you should set up an estate, but maybe we'll have another conversation another day about estate planning. Um, but that's worth thinking about. Now, you want to make sure. Another great thing about the tenant in common account is that nobody can take money out without both people signing for it. So that's way better than a joint account. A joint account, he can just go and take all the money out. But with a tenants in common account, you can't do that. Both, all of the parties have to sign. And when they issue money, it's in the name of everybody on the account. So, um, I think that has a lot of benefits over a joint account or community property account, so that things won't be happening that you don't know about. And have duplicate statements set up that you're going to be getting statements. Have your own login to the account. You should have separate logins so that you can log in and be aware, set up alerts on the accounts for if there are like withdrawals or any type of, you know, um, any type of major activity on the account that you're made aware of it. You just don't want to be, you want to catch things early. You don't want to be caught off guard where something is going on that you don't know what's happening. You want to be aware and vigilant about your assets, about your um your valuables. You want to be aware of that. So that's what I would say with the accounts. Um make sure, while we're speaking about accounts, making sure you are the beneficiary on his accounts. So on his 401k, on his life insurance. And this is very important, especially for women who are with men who have been married before. You would be so surprised, or maybe you wouldn't. You would be so surprised of men who are too lazy to go and change the shit on their accounts. It is so many men who will just not take the time to do it. And here you are with this man in his latter years, and you're thinking you're going to get his pension, you're going to get his military benefits, you're going to get his social security, you're going to get the 401k, you're going to get this. And guess what? The ex wife is on there and he never took her off. Or he got mad at the ex wife, put his sister on there because he was single for a little while, put his sister on there and never took her off and never put you on there. So make sure that you are the beneficiary on these accounts, and maybe your children are contingent benefit beneficiaries, but that's just a line item. Like if you have your checklist of financially protecting yourself, that's going to definitely be on your checklist to do. And you can group it into, if you're going to marry this man, as a part of your premarital housekeeping, premarital preparation, whatever you want to call it. But it's something that you need to do before you move into that house, before you sign your name on the dotted line, before you do any of that. Those are the important things that you want to get cleaned up and make sure that those things are in order. Um, if you're just going to be cohabitating, that's going to be your before you move in there. Those are the things that you need. You need to be on these life insurance, the accounts as beneficiary, the brokerage accounts, the 401k, the IRA, whatever types of accounts he has, if he has a pension, all of that. You need to be the beneficiary on there. So, um yeah. So next, another asset to make sure you protect is your car. Um I would say, if see, the thing about the car is it's hard to have different insurance policies because a lot of insurance companies feel like if you live in the same, all adults that live in the same household, they assume that all the adults have access to drive the cars. So that's what makes it a little bit trickier as far as trying to separate um, the insurance policies. But it's worth maybe talking to an insurance agent. And then there are different levels of insurance agents. So you have your everyday run of the mill people like the Allstate people, the State Farm people, that you can just call randomly. They also have insurance companies for like affluent people, like elevated insurance policies that cater to people that want specific types of coverages, extra coverage, um, those kinds of things. Talk to those people. Okay. Talk to Chubbs is one company that comes to mind. But if you can just think of a company like Chubbs, um, somewhere along those lines, just put family office or like wealth management insurance options and see what comes up in your area. Talk to them and be like, hey, like, let's say, because this is all like, we're talking about contingency plans, and we're talking about how do I protect myself if everything goes wrong, if everything goes awry. So if you get with this man and he develops a drinking problem, you probably don't want to be on an insurance policy with him, a car insurance policy with him, if he's drinking too much, etc., racking up DWIs or something. You probably don't want that. So I don't know if this is possible, but just talk to an, of, an insurance company that caters to the affluent and tell them, hey, I live with this man. but I want my own insurance policy and I want to limit my I want to sever my liability to whatever he does with his car. He doesn't drive my car, I don't drive his car. What can I do to help distance myself from whatever he's doing, whatever he's got going on? And just see what they say, because I really don't have an answer, but I'm just bringing it up to you to think about. Or if you ever get into the situation where you're concerned about what he might do in a vehicle and you don't want to be liable, like you don't want somebody to, you know, him to go out and do something horrible in the car and then now they're coming after your house, they're coming after your car, they're coming after your accounts. So how can you shield yourself as much as possible from what he might be doing? And maybe that even means you garage your, if you have to garage your house, your car somewhere else, you might just have to do that. Or if you need to garage his car somewhere else, you might just have to do that. Those are all options that these advanced insurance people can talk to you about. What are the possibilities? um it's all worth thinking about. Oh, let me think if I have anything else when it comes to that. Well, so the three assets we talked about was primary residence. We talked somewhat about secondary residence. We talked about bank accounts and brokerage accounts and cars. And just to briefly speak about red flags, because there are some things you can tell that things could go awry. Um, if someone has like a kind of like an addictive personality, I know I've observed over the years that addictions can kind of morph into, they can kind of span into different things. And sometimes there's like co addictions, like people drink and do coke, or they overeat and gamble, or they gamble and they smoke and they do that, like the addictions tend to kind of span over different areas. Or they might get the drinking under control but now they're gambling too much, or they get the gambling under control but now they're doing too much drugs or just smoking a bunch of pot all day. So if you see that, I can tell you that it doesn't usually get better. It's one of those things that progressively gets worse. So I don't see those kind of men as good men to be having children with. I don't even see those types of men as good men to be cohabitating with. Now, a shopping spree, like dating, maybe going on vacation, yeah, that's not out of the question. If he's manageable and tolerable, that might fit into your life. That may make sense. But having children, yeah, no, no. Those are going to be the personality types that you want to distance yourself from. Can people get into recovery and beat their addictions? Yes, they can. Is that something that you want to gamble with? Is that the chance that you want to take, that you're going to get with somebody, they drink too much, you're hoping that they're going to get their drinking under control and everything's going to be happily ever after for you? I don't think it's worth it. I don't think it's worth it. If we're talking about protecting yourself financially, I don't think it's worth it. Um, but those are all things that you can kind of observe. And if you get into a situation where everything's going good and then, oh my gosh, you discover they have a gambling problem, or everything's going good, they were, you knew they were doing a little bit of coke, and then before you know it, it's totally out of control. They're a total full-blown cokehead. I would say definitely get support for yourself. Get support for yourself, because it's very difficult to be in a close relationship with someone who is suffering with some type of addiction. So get support for yourself so that you know how to manage it. You know how to protect yourself, and you know how to not enable them, not put yourself in harm's way, not feel guilty for what they're doing, not feel so responsible for another grown person's decisions and what they're doing. Um, you you'll definitely need support on how to navigate that. And then if you see these things, just be as honest with yourself as you can and accept reality for what reality is. Deal with the facts, not with the fantasy that you have built up in your head or the idea of the perfect relationship that you had. Oh my God, things were so amazing in the beginning. He was my Prince Charming. And you're just kind of so nostalgic, and you're just only seeing this person in the way that they originally made you feel, the way they originally presented themselves, and that can be blinding. But if it's like, okay, if I put that to the side and I look what is in front of me, okay, I'm dealing with someone who like does coke all day. That's my reality. And so if that's your reality, then you can implement your contingency plans, right? And start, shutting stuff down, closing off accounts, transferring assets, doing whatever you have to do to mitigate your risk. Hopefully they do get treatment and get better, but if they don't, the idea is you're going to be okay regardless of what happens to them. If they decide that they're going to blow it all and just literally live on the street, then that would be their prerogative if they want to do that. Because I mean, I could say like I've seen that here around like you know my community. I've kind of seen how that can go, and a lot of times when people develop these vices, they do start to make bad, more risky decisions, worse decisions, more risky decisions, because their thinking is impaired. Their thinking is impaired, their judgment is impaired, and those vices can be very expensive. And a lot of times they'll get like hanger honors that will be kind of fueling the BS because they've latched on to who they think is like a free ride or a free meal. So um I'll make this part one. We'll have a part two where we can talk about your children's educational funds, 529s, children's insurance policies, and other types of assets that you can develop your own strategy of protecting. And I think another important area to talk about is like protecting your own body, protecting your own body and protecting your health, protecting your physical health and protecting your mental health, which is an invaluable asset. So let's talk about that on part two. This will be part one. If you have not, please subscribe to the channel, like, share, and leave me a comment. Thanks so much for tuning in.